The story begins in Alaska, a very cold place due to the rapid increase in global warming, where the ice began to slowly melt. The thick layer of ice thinned, and one day from beneath the melting ice emerged a very ancient and dangerous creature. It was the Wyvern, a terrifying ice dragon. Nearby, in a pond formed by the melting ice, a fisherman was cleaning his catch. His knife slipped and he accidentally cut his finger. He dipped his hand in the cold water to clean the wound, but as soon as a drop of his blood fell into the water, the dragon awakened. This beast had been imprisoned there for 10,000 years and was starving. It immediately attacked the fisherman. The poor fellow tried to escape, but the dragon surrounded him and swallowed him whole. Not far from this tragic incident was a small town called Beaver Mills. Everything was going on as normal there. The days and nights in Alaska are much longer than in other places, which often creates problems for outsiders. One of these outsiders was Jake. He used to be a truck driver, but after his brother died in a terrible accident, he left that job and now worked as a carpenter. At that time, Jake was doing some repairs at a small restaurant in town. While Jake was working, Claire, a woman working there, was watching him intently. Jake had been working late, so Claire decided to offer him coffee. She was just reaching out with the coffee when David, a well-known doctor in the town, suddenly interrupted. He took the coffee from Claire's hand, thinking it was for him, and asked her if she would go on a date. Claire refused, as she had done many times before. Feeling a little insulted and angry, David left. Later, Claire apologized to Jake and explained that the coffee was originally for him. She offered Jake some food if he was hungry. Jake was indeed hungry, so he agreed. Inside the diner, Jake met an elderly woman named Edna. She was a regular customer and always ordered breakfast for two, one for herself and one for her husband. Sadly, she was the wife of the fisherman who had been eaten by the dragon just a short while ago. Edna had still not recovered from the grief of her husband's disappearance. Claire noticed that Jake was going through a similar grief. She comforted Jake, telling him that his brother would be happy wherever he was. But Jake wasn't ready to talk about his brother. He finished his coffee and went home. Across town, a retired colonel was feeding his dog in his garden when suddenly, a large deer's severed head fell from the sky and landed directly in front of him. This strange incident soon made the news, as there was only one radio station in the area, so the reporter broke the news. Most people thought it was a prank by some mischievous children, but it was actually a sign of impending danger. Jake heard the news but paid it no mind and returned to his home, which was a van. A short while later, Dr. David came to visit Jake. He examined Jake's hand and said he wanted to treat his injury. But the treatment was just a pretext. David really wanted to find out if something was going on between Jake and Claire. Jake refused and told the doctor that he wouldn't be staying here forever. He explained that he would leave as soon as he received the insurance money for his brother's accident. The doctor was overjoyed. He told Jake that he didn't need to pay for the treatment and that he should let him know if he needed any further help. On the way back, David stopped his car near a forest and got out to relieve himself. While he was outside, he heard a loud noise from above. When he looked up, he saw the huge ice dragon. The dragon came near the car and suddenly attacked the doctor. David somehow managed to escape into the woods and hid for a while. When he thought the dragon was gone, he returned to his car. But as he tried to start the car, the dragon returned and attacked him, making it appear as if David had been killed. The next day, a man named Hayes went hunting in the forest. He noticed strange marks on the ground and the droppings of a very large animal. He knew that no animal in that forest could leave such large marks. Suddenly, the wyvern appeared before him. Hayes fired his gun, but the dragon escaped. The gunshot was heard by Sheriff Dawson, the town's police officer. Susie, who was talking to Jake outside the diner, followed the sound into the woods. They found a terrified Hayes. Hayes told them he'd seen a large monster in the sky and barely escaped with his life. The sheriff didn't believe him. He thought Hayes was drunk and told him to go to the station and give a statement. But then Jake saw a severed hand in the woods. He immediately recognized the shirt and watch. It was the hand of Dr. David, whom he'd met just yesterday. The sheriff was confused and couldn't understand what was going on. He kept saying that the monster was very dangerous and would kill everyone. Although they had no proof of a dragon, David's severed hand couldn't be ignored. The sheriff called an emergency meeting at the restaurant. He told everyone that an unknown creature was attacking the townspeople. He didn't completely believe Hayes's story about the monster, but he still warned people to be careful and stay indoors. Just then, Deputy Susie arrived with the doctor's severed hand. Everyone panicked. The sheriff sternly stated that no one should venture into the woods alone and that everyone should take care of their pets. A special annual festival was soon to be held in town, and people asked the sheriff what to do about it. Jake interrupted, "Are you guys crazy? A man's hand is found and you're so worried about the festival." But the sheriff said that an outsider doesn't understand their ways, and the festival won't be stopped so as not to create an atmosphere of fear in the town. After the meeting, the sheriff received a call from a man named Thomas, who said his farm had been attacked. The sheriff immediately headed to the farm. Meanwhile, retired Colonel Travis was still trying to figure out who threw the deer's head in his garden. He looked up and saw a large dragon flying in the sky. He immediately took his jeep and left to inform the police. But on the way, the dragon suddenly appeared in front of him. The colonel got out of the car with a gun and began firing at the wyvern. The bullets didn't harm the dragon, but the noise frightened it away. The colonel then went to town and told Deputy Susie everything. He said aliens had attacked their world. Susie thought the old man was crazy and told him to go home. Still, she thought she should tell the sheriff once. But by then, the sheriff had arrived at Thomas's farm and wasn't answering the phone. When the sheriff reached the horse stable, he called out to Thomas. Suddenly, he slipped in a pool of blood. Lying there, he saw Thomas's corpse. The sheriff, unaccustomed to such bloodshed, was so terrified that he fainted. Then the colonel ran to Hampton, who worked at the radio station. Hampton told him to quickly make an emergency announcement about the monster. But Hampton refused, saying he couldn't do that without government permission. The colonel was furious, but he couldn't help it. He then went to his friend Farley, who was preparing food for the festival. Even Farley didn't believe him. But soon everyone was convinced when the wyvern himself arrived in town. It landed right in front of the radio station. Seeing the dragon, Hampton tried to send a message for help. But the dragon broke the power pole, causing the power to go out and the radio to shut down. Meanwhile, at the farm, the sheriff regained consciousness and used his radio to tell Susie to send everyone home. Susie announced through a megaphone that everyone should go home. But her luck was bad. Suddenly, the huge dragon appeared above and attacked Susie in one blow, killing her with its large, dangerous claws. Everyone began to flee, seeing the dragon. Panic gripped the town. Claire and Jake ran inside the restaurant. They heard screams and saw the dragon approaching them. It broke down the door of the diner with its large, dangerous teeth and tried to break in. People hid behind tables. After a while, the dragon stopped attacking and flew up to catch and devour other people in the city. A little later, Hampton and Farley also arrived at the diner and told everyone that the dangerous creature was devouring people one by one. Everyone found this strange and bizarre. Claire then remarked that it was hardly a dragon like the ones in the old stories. Hampton called her crazy. But Hayes said that every country had stories of such mysterious dragons. He explained that in the old stories there was a dragon named Wyvern who was born in hell and was very hungry. According to the story, initially it only ate bad people, but later its hunger increased. It grew so large that it began to eat everyone. Odin, the king of the gods, had imprisoned it in a mountain of ice. Now that the ice around the world is melting, perhaps the wyvern has also been freed. Hayes knew this because his family came from Norway, where these stories are from. Jake asked if there was any way to kill it. Claire said that the ancients used to sacrifice humans, which is impossible these days. Jake decided to find the sheriff and call for help. Claire said she would come along. They both got out on the road and saw that the dragon had landed in a part of the forest. Despite the danger, Jake said he would go closer and see where the dragon was hiding. At the same time, on another road, the colonel was also searching for the dragon. He saw a trailer parked in the road. The vehicle was empty, but there were blood stains inside and outside as if there had been a fight. When he looked at the other vehicles, they were all broken and the people were missing. He understood that the dragon wanted people to stay out so that he wouldn't run out of food. Inside the diner, Hampton tried to turn on the radio again, but the system was completely out. A short while later, the sheriff returned to the town, but everywhere was in ruins. He tried to call for help, but the dragon came flying towards him. Farley shouted to him to quickly hide in the diner. But as the sheriff tried to go inside, the dragon attacked him and grabbed him. By then, Jake had reached the woods, where he saw the dragon's nest. which it had made by ravaging the surrounding materials. He gave Claire a pistol and told her to stay in the car. When Jake went ahead, the dragon attacked the car. Claire tried to hide, but the dragon broke down the door. Claire gathered her courage and opened fire. Jake ran back, but the car was empty. Fortunately, he found Claire in the woods, barely surviving. Seconds later, the colonel arrived, having also heard the gunfire. They realized that the only way to stop the dragon was to kill it. The three of them returned to town. Jake spoke to Hampton on the communicator and learned that the sheriff was dead. Now they had to devise a new plan. They didn't have many weapons and their phones weren't working. Hampton remembered that he had a radio in his studio, but the antenna needed to be more powerful. They calculated that a nearby store had one. Jake and Hampton went there. On the way, they took weapons and bullets from the sheriff's car and gave them to the colonel so he could protect the others. Reaching the store, Jake climbed onto the roof and began unscrewing the antenna. While he was unscrewing the last screw, the dragon appeared again. Hampton pulled out his pistol to help and fired at the dragon, giving Jake time to remove the antenna. The two quickly ran back to the diner, narrowly escaping. At the diner, Hampton installed the antenna and connected the radio. Jake set the frequency and called the security agency. But the signal was weak and the agent wasn't convinced. Jake thought people wouldn't believe the dragon story. So he lied, saying there was a gas explosion and urgent help was needed. The signal cut out and the conversation couldn't be completed. Now they were on their own, so Jake decided they had to fight the dragon. Everyone prepared their weapons. Farley and Hayes went to find fuel. Just then, the dragon landed on top of a house. Farley panicked and the dragon struck him with its tail, severely injuring him. Jake rushed forward to save him and everyone else continued to attack the dragon. Then we see Dr. David in the dragon's nest. He was actually alive. David took off his tie and tied it around his arm to reduce bleeding. When he stood up, he saw 3 large dragon eggs. But before he could do anything, the dragon returned, captured him and took him to the city. Back in the city, Jake and Claire were resting when Hayes announced that the Wyvern had returned. Everyone looked outside and the dragon dropped David on the ground. It was a trap. He wanted people to come out to get him. Jake knew it was a trap, but he couldn't leave David to die. He went to rescue him. When the dragon attacked, Jake fired his pistol. Hayes and the colonel also fired. Farley, wounded, ran out and distracted the dragon and the plan worked. Jake saved David, but the dragon captured Farley and took him to its nest. A short while later, a rescue helicopter arrived. But as it approached the town, the dragon attacked, destroyed it and killed the pilot. Once again, the townspeople were alone. David, though injured, revealed a secret. He explained that there were 3 eggs in the nest. If those eggs hatched, more dragons would be born and it would be impossible to stop them. Jake said, "We'll go to the jungle and destroy the eggs." They left Edna there and the others went into the jungle. There they found a power generator that could generate dangerous currents. They decided to kill the dragon with the current. Hampton set up the generator. Everything was ready, but just as Jake was about to turn it on, the dragon attacked them. The plan failed and Hayes was killed. The colonel, maddened by the loss of his friend, began shooting at the eggs. Jake stopped him, saying the eggs could still be used to lure the dragon. On the way, they found a large cargo truck. Jake decided to use the truck to trap the dragon. He said he would do it alone to keep Claire safe as he had grown fond of her. Jake loaded the eggs into the truck and drove off at full speed. He honked the horn to make the dragon follow. The dragon was trapped and started chasing the truck. It hit the truck and then landed in front of the windscreen, blocking Jake's view. A large mountain and a deep ravine loomed ahead. Jake drove the truck at full speed towards the ravine and jumped out at the last moment. The truck, along with the dragon and eggs, plunged down the mountain, causing a massive explosion. The explosion destroyed the dragon and all its eggs. Thus, the dangerous ice dragon named Wyvern was destroyed. The remaining townspeople and Claire waited for Jake. After a while, Jake returned and announced that the danger had passed. Finally, Jake decided not to go anywhere and would stay in town with Claire. This is where the movie ends. Subscribe to Movo Reels, where every movie tells its story again.